Hello. I'd like to tell you an original story, Geema's Shivaree. When Libby woke up and saw the ceiling high above her bed, she remembered right away where she was, Geema's house. She pushed aside the soft, comfortable quilt and hopped down out of the tall oak bed. Geema's house. Today was the day of the big family reunion at her great-grandmother's house in West Virginia. Libby hurriedly washed and dressed, and she tiptoed past her parents' bedroom where they were sleeping, and she padded down the stairs where she found Geema in the dining room, where she was sipping coffee from her favorite white mug. "Good morning, Libby," Geema said. "Did you have a good sleep?" "Oh, I always do when I come here, Geema. It's so quiet." "Yes, that's why you'll never find me living in the city," Geema said. "Now, what would you like for breakfast?" "A sunflower egg, please." "All right," Geema said. Geema broke an egg into the worn tin egg poacher, and when it was finished, she scooped it into Libby's favorite dish, the one with the roses on the bottom and the gold fluting around the edge. Then she took a spoon and very carefully cut around the white of the egg, making petals so that the yellow yolk spread around. Then she set it in front of Libby and kissed her on the head and said, "All right, here's your sunflower egg." Libby began eating, and then she looked at Geema and said, "Geema, why are we having this family reunion?" "Well," Geema said, "this family isn't getting any smaller and I'm not getting any younger. I wanted to get everybody together before I'm gone." "Oh, Geema, don't talk like that. I can't think of you not being here." "Well, I just want you young'uns to have something to remember." Like the stories from when you were young," Libby said. "Oh, I suppose so," Geema said. Libby took another bite of egg. And then she said, "My mom says that you can't dwell in the past. What does that mean?" Geema took a sip of coffee. "Well, she means that you can't spend today wishing it were yesterday." Now, Libby, I'm not wishing it was yesterday when I tell you my stories. I just want you to have something to remember. I want you cousins to have something to remember from today. "Oh, Geema," Libby said, I wish I could do some of the things you did when you were young. They sound like so much fun." Geema chuckled. "Oh, I'm serious, Geema," Libby said. "Oh, you know, things like having a fire in the fireplace all the time and not just at Christmas, and having your friends over to make a quilt, and having a dance out in the barn, and making taffy. You know, old-fashioned stuff." "Oh, horse feathers," Geema said. "Haven't you and I made taffy?" "Oh, and we did, Geema, and that was the time that you said the weather wasn't right and it stuck to our fingers." "And we had to eat it off. We could do anything else," Geema said. "Oh, it's a wonder we didn't get sick." "No, Libby, I just want you and your cousins to have a good time today." "Oh, Geema," Libby said, I still wish I could do some of the things you did when you were young. You sound so happy when you talk about them." "I have good memories, Libby. That's why I sound happy. I am happy. But don't get me wrong, life could be very tough when I was a young woman." "But if things were so tough, why do you talk about them now?" Good friends made life easier. We took care of each other, and we made our own fun. I have good memories about that." "Well, aren't memories just things stuck in your head, Geema?" "Oh, Libby, memories are where our stories come from. And every time you do something and remember it later and talk about it, you're making a story. And without stories, the things we did and the people we knew would be lost forever. Now finish your egg. The yellow's going to stick to the dish." Libby scooped up the rest of her breakfast. And then she said, "Geema, when's everybody going to get here?" "Oh, later this afternoon, I suppose," she said, "in time for our picnic supper." And sure enough, just as Geema said, the whole family gathered at the house later that afternoon. And Geema stood in the kitchen watching with delight as the whole family, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, cousins, and everyone were working together to make that supper possible. Some of them had set up tables out under the silver maple trees in Geema's yard, and others had the charcoal grills going for hot dogs and hamburgers, and others were there in the kitchen making potato salad and slicing tomatoes and getting everything ready. Several of the children, including Libby, were gathered around Geema, and she looked at them and she said, "Well, children, now we have to get those tables ready, and I'd like to get some tablecloths out of the press. Would you help me?" "Of course we will," they all said. So they followed Geema to the front room, where she opened the press, and that was a little cupboard that was built into the wall next to the fireplace. "Now, the tablecloths are up on an upper shelf," she said. "Now, you might have to move some boxes." "I'll get them, Geema," one of the older boys said, and as he reached for one of the boxes, one of them slipped. "Oh, I'm sorry, Geema," he said. And the box came open when it landed at Geema's feet, and there on the floor was a honeycomb tissue bell. It had been white, but now it was yellow with age. "Oh, my stars," Geema said, "I forgot that was in there. One of you young'uns, hand it to me, please." Libby bent down and very carefully picked up the bell. She placed it in Geema's hands, and Geema held it as if it was something asleep. "I forgot that was in there," Geema said. Can we open it up?" one of the girls said. "No, it's too old," Geema said. "Is it a Christmas decoration?" "No, it's from my wedding." "It's from your wedding," Libby said. "Why, yes," Geema said. It hung up there in the hall. Your great-granddad and I were married standing under that bell." The younger boy spoke up. "You got married in the house? You didn't go to a church?" "Oh, we had a minister," Geema said. "Yes, we were married right under that bell, and it was, oh my, it was on this day. Today's my anniversary. How could I forget? Well, I suppose getting ready for this reunion, but yes, today was my anniversary." Well, if you got married in the house," Geema, one of the girls said, "where did you have your reception?" "Oh, we didn't have a reception," Geema said. We didn't have big fancy weddings like you do now. Besides, it was haying season and we didn't have time to fuss over a wedding." "Well, if you didn't have a reception," the little girl said, "what did you have?" "Well," Geema thought, "we had a shivaree." "What's a shivaree?" Libby said. All the time she had stayed at Geema's house and heard all her stories, she'd never heard about the shivaree. "Well," Geema said, "about 2 weeks after our wedding, your great-granddad and I were already in bed, and some of our friends borrowed a car and they drove out and parked down the road so we wouldn't see them. And then they crept into our yard and up on the porch, and then they started in with a racket to beat the bugs a fighting. They were beating on pots and pans. They had a cowbell, and a couple of them had a big saw blade on a pole, and they were beating on it with a hammer. Oh, the racket was tremendous." "What did you do?" the kid said. Did you know they were coming?" "Well, I had baked a chocolate cake just in case. So there we were in our night clothes, so we invited everyone in, and we had chocolate cake, and I made some lemonade. And then they went all home. And that was our shivaree." The older boy spoke up. "You mean your friends woke you up in the middle of the night with a lot of noise? That is so cool." "Well, then," Geema said, "I guess we were cool." "Oh, your great-granddad was so tickled." And then her face dropped in sorrow. "Oh, how I do miss him." A little bit later, the whole family was gathered out in the yard, enjoying that picnic supper. There wasn't much talk as they ate, but pretty soon people began to mingle among themselves and talk, and Libby and her cousins were at their own table, and they were busy whispering together and giggling. And some of the adults got up to play horseshoes, but some of them stayed behind at the tables and talking, and Geema was with them. But they noticed that she looked very tired. In fact, she looked like a flower that needed some water. But before long, Libby and her cousins jumped up from their table and they ran over to Libby's father, who was playing horseshoes. And Libby said, "Daddy, can we be excused, please? We want to go look for lightning bugs." "Are you sure you don't want to play horseshoes?" "Oh, no, Daddy, We want to go hunt lightning bugs. All right, he said. Just be careful if you go up on the hill. There might be wolves. Oh, Daddy, she said as they scampered away. The clang of the horseshoes rang softly in the air that evening, but pretty soon there was an even louder clanging noise that was coming from the kitchen door. And all Libby and her cousins burst out of the kitchen door carrying pots and pans, and they were banging on them and shouting, "Happy anniversary, Geema! Happy Shivaree! Bang, clang, crash!" And they marched around the picnic tables, and they marched around Geema's table. Bang, clang, crash! Happy anniversary, Geema! Happy Shivaree! My stars, what is this? Geema said. And then she raised her arms to wave for quiet. And the children all gathered around, and they couldn't tell if Geema was laughing or crying or both. Geema reached into her apron pocket and dabbed her eyes with her handkerchief. And then she said, "That was the finest Shivaree I have ever seen." Was it a real one, Libby said? Was it like the one you had? Oh, it was a dandy. It was Libby's idea, one of the boys said. I'm not surprised, Geema said. But whatever for? Well, Geema, Libby said. We felt bad that you couldn't celebrate your anniversary anymore. And your Shivaree sounded like the best part about your wedding, so we thought you'd like another one. Geema opened her arms wide to the children. She says, "Oh, you young'uns, come here." And they all crowded around Geema to take in her embrace. "Thank you," she said. "That was the best anniversary present I could ever have. And the best thing about it was it came from all of you." And then she dropped her arms, and the children stepped back. And they stood there waiting. And then Geema wiped her hands on her apron. And then she stood up. And she looked at all the children and her family. She says, "Now, who's ready for some chocolate cake?" Geema Shivaree. Thank you for the listen.